Olá, CACDista! Seja muito bem-vindo a mais uma aula do Caminho Diplomático, uma série de lives onde a gente vai te levar do zero ao competitivo em todas as matérias do CACD. E além disso, você vai ter a oportunidade de conhecer os seus futuros professores no curso extensivo para o CACD 2025 do Clipping, que inclusive já está lançado e durante a semana de lives ele estará no lote 1. Então você vai ter um desconto de mais de 30% durante esses próximos dias. O link para você poder conhecer todas as informações do curso, os seus professores, baixar a ementa e conferir também os bônus exclusivos está aqui na descrição. Então acessa lá e vem com a gente, com os professores líderes em aprovação, buscar a sua vaga no CACD.
Hi everyone, I think I'm live. My name is Sean. People call me Professor Sean. That's how people call me. And I'm going to talk to you today about what it takes to be a beginner student, to be a competitive student. It takes time. It takes a lot of study. Claro, posso falar português com você, mas nossa aula hoje vai ficar em português, em inglês, ok? Claro, se você não entende inglês, tá difícil, ok? Leva mais tempo. But if you do understand English, if you're understanding what I say, then of course you've got a chance. But the difference between other subjects and of course with English, you've got to learn another language, you've got to develop another language that requires memory and production at a high level for the exam. Okay, so that takes time. Now, how good your English is, of course, means that time is going to shorten. But it doesn't mean if you speak English, let's say, as good as I do, you're going to be great at the test. No, it takes time to understand the test, study all of the subjects, and use that in English, because everything you do will have to be expressed in English on the day of the exam. So when we start from beginner, we need to focus on basically everything as well as English, okay? Now, let me see if there's anything in the chat. Hello, everyone. Nielsen, Lara. Okay. Hi, everyone. Anna, Arthur. Hello, Arthur. I think Breno as well, Fernanda. Hi. So now you're all in. Let's get going. So we're going to talk about what it's like to be a beginner. Now, I've been reviewing my own classes again and again. We have much more advantage than we did in the past. We've got, for example, AI to help us, okay, to learn to study with that. We can get much more information, and certainly it helps me help you to push your level up to a high level. And that's going to be reflected in the changes of the courses that I'm going to do this year. So I'm going to teach you strategies, teach you a way to improve for you to go quicker. Now, I do know about this, of course, because I do lots of research. I do research on vocabulary all of the time and how to get you competent as well. I'm always studying how to improve my students, okay? And that's what I do. If you don't know who I am, by the way, I'm an English teacher. I have a master's, I run my own company, and I work here in Brasilia, mainly with contracts for the government. So I worked at Rio Branco for 10 years as well. That's very important, of course, and left a few years ago. And now I work in other areas of the government, courses at TCU, CGU, for state governments as well, for procuradores. So I I teach legal English as well, and mainly do contracts for the government, specialist contracts, okay? When they come, they say, we need something prepared specifically for our civil servants and their job. That's what I do. So I prepare courses specifically to get people to improve in the area that they are focused on, And in this case, of course, my job is to get you as high level as possible. Hi, John, as possible as well. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to try and share something here. Let's have a look. If I can share my slides, I don't know. Let me see. Because this always helps. Right then, it says, okay, can we see this? Let's see if we can see these slides. If not, I'm going to talk. Probably not. This is a, now I can't see the slides. Maybe you can, I'm not sure. I don't think so. So I'm going to just talk as we go through my slides, okay? Could we see them? Okay. Okay. So, Adniel. So we're talking about beginner students, times you're beginning to study for the CACD. Of course, you must have some English, all right? Of course, your English is going to improve. We need a higher level of English. And how do we do that? Well, we have to focus on different strategies to get you up there, all right? Now, I'm going to try and So, telemarketers, if you don't speak English, it's going to take you a long time because this is not necessarily what we're looking at. It's not an English course. It's an English course for CACD, all right? So, if you don't have any English at all, this is probably not the exam for you, all right? If you've got, let's say, a pre-intermediate or an intermediate level, that's a good starting. No, the slide's not coming, Fernando. I don't know why. I'll see if I can find my other slides. Okay, if you let me go and find them. Here we are. Let's try the PowerPoint because PowerPoint usually works. No, I'm not going to be able to do that. So what we have, it's not going to come. It's not going to come, I'm afraid. Yes, I have a clear pronunciation. I've been in Brazil for a long time, Carlos. Okay. Oh, my slides are coming at last. They did come. Okay. So, of course, what have you got to do to improve your English as well as get ready for the test? Well, you must construct, okay, your knowledge of history, diplomacy, and international relations. That's the first basic thing. But we have to do it in English. So it's like it's a separate course. You have all of those other teachers teaching you history, diplomacy, international relations, economy, geography, okay? But when it comes to courses in English, we have to do it all, but and help you with those subjects to prepare in English. So lots of texts in English that we're going to analyze to get you through. But of course, these subjects are very important. So in English, we're going to learn all that vocabulary and all that grammar using this information. So, no, so the course will be focused. Good, Arthur, okay? So it's an extensive course. We're going to start slowly, okay? And I'm going to teach you how to learn vocabulary, how to study vocabulary. So in the first subjects, for example, the first what do you call it? The first part, the first module, we're going to focus a lot on how to study. Now go through a slide. I'll go through very quickly one. What I'm going to do in the first, I'm going to teach you how, let's go through this, how to make sure you study your vocabulary. Now, we're going to use something called lexical notebooks. I'm going to force you from a intermediate, low intermediate level to learn how to understand the text, how to improve your vocabulary using texts of international relations, of diplomacy, and history. Okay, so we're going to use text. So make text specifically for those areas. So then all that vocabulary can come out. I'm going to teach you how to learn that vocabulary, how to study that vocabulary, because you're going to have to study a lot. Okay, so we're going to learn how to do that by just simply noting down the vocabulary. But our classes are specifically made for those areas, okay? We will do, Nielsen, we will do some grammar. Of course, we'll do some very basic grammar too, because the basic grammar is actually what you need to understand to get to an intermediate and high level. But don't worry, okay? We're going to take our time and go through, and you've got me to help you, all right? And that's why, because what it is, Nielsen, we must get you up to a high level. And if we do this, a standard course of English, it's going to take you 5, 6, 7, 8 years, okay? But when we're focusing on international relations, history, and those areas, we can focus on improving you much quicker because our language is limited. Our vocabulary is limited and our grammar is limited. You don't need all the grammar that exists to be able to improve, okay? If you were to read books in English like this one, okay, or this one, which are great books to read in English, you'll see advanced vocabulary, but the grammar will be quite simple, all right? Grammar is not our issue to study. Our issue is to get you to express yourself as quickly as possible, to move up from not knowing any way of expressing yourself to a higher level. So let's go back to, let me explain that a bit more. Okay. So where is this information? Okay. So the exam says you need an advanced proficiency. Of course, that's what it says. That's what it expects. But when you get to Rio Branco, okay, you're going to find that many of the students don't have that advanced level. Of course, I've given classes at Rio Branco. I was a teacher there for a long time, and not everybody has an advanced level of English. Some of them have a poor intermediate level, this level, okay? But of course, we need to improve you a lot, okay? If you're basic, it takes more time, okay? And I'll make a suggestion. If you're very basic, you don't know one thing in English, you'll probably actually do. Because what do? We've got a Latin-based language. Portuguese gives us a lot of help in achieving English, okay? Grammar is very similar, but there's a lot of vocabulary. It's very similar. It's not like you're Chinese studying English. There's lots of similarities, lots of expressions we use that when we translate are very familiar. And of course, we have to be familiar with academic English. That's that history, international relations, diplomacy. That's all academic style English. Okay, so with a teacher who knows how to do that, then you are there able, after a period of time, the first module takes time, learn a specific way of improving your English by noting down vocabulary, a special way that you can improve. Yeah, okay, and abilities. You will gain confidence in writing. Confidence is your key, all right? You know, so it's a problem for the majority of people. You know, I teach people at the highest level of government, okay? And confidence, and they're representing Brazil, okay, at the highest level, and they're not confident in speaking or even writing. I know today you've got so much help online for you to write, okay, but speaking, is difficult. But if you've got a good speaking level, Anna Beatrice, then you should be all right for writing. But studying carefully, focusing on the vocabulary that we need, and expressing yourself, knowing how to express yourself to a high level is good. Okay, fine. So yeah, I think you can translate this probably on YouTube, or you can also put the captions as well. Okay. So good question. Okay, daily study. Okay. So what grammar books will you use? Well, we have to do some grammar. Now, this is the most popular, but this is the intermediate grammar. And for those who are beginners, you need the beginner grammar as well. This is the intermediate grammar, and this is the one we want to be able to dominate. All right. Now, there are others. Have I got another one here? I think I have. Look. Another one, the good grammar book. One's Oxford, one's Cambridge, I think. Yeah. Okay. These type of books are ones you can study by yourself. You don't have to dominate everything. Okay. But the majority of the things you need to. There are more advanced ones, which you have to be very careful of. For example, here's one by Macmillan, Advanced Language Practice. There's only some areas that we need for the exam, okay? So we don't, and this can be difficult even for me, all right? So what in the course, I'm going to guide you with what you should study and what you shouldn't study, okay? For example, I'm going to tell you what areas of this book you should study and ones that you don't really need. Okay, because there's some enrolação sometimes in these books. Okay, all right then. So, but of course we have to get you up to a higher level. So let's go on. So to be a beginner candidate, and that's what we're talking about. The first time I want to pass this concurso, I want to do it in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. Some people take 5 or 6 years, of course, to study, all right? Because the good thing is this exam is every year. So every year when we do the exam, we see how good we are, and we see how we're improving, all right? No other concurso is like that, okay? So that's the benefit of studying. We've always got the exam coming up. Hopefully I would like it to be twice a year as it was in the past. But at the moment, let's stay with 2. So what you need is a structured program, of course. We need to structure this program. The first structure will be improving your English, improving your grammar, doing that basic grammar, okay? But for you to study, using these books for you to study after class, because I'm not going to do all of the grammar, okay? And you can come back to me with your questions. And we'll be focusing a lot on vocabulary, okay? Because we need to get you to pass from mechanic. We need to get you to advanced grammar and vocabulary. That's our aim, all right? Of course, it takes steps to go there. It's normal to take those steps. But we have to focus on getting to an advanced grammar and vocabulary. So we have to have regular reading and of complex text. Now, the text can be quite complex when we go to phase 1, the TPS, okay? So, and I will talk about that because we need to talk about the exam as well. So we need to be able to read. So we need to look, if you were to read, for example, where were the books I had? These history books, they require, okay, even in Portuguese, okay, strong analytical skills, analyzing these complex language, especially this one. I love this book, actually. All right. So level of English, very good. And we can use these to study too. All right. This one's so cheap. Do you know, I got this online. I think it was, how many? I think it was 5 reais or 3 reais. All right. And the level of English is excellent. And we're studying history and English. All right. This one is a fantastic level of translation. I really do like it as well. So even studying English using these texts is what we've got to do, okay? Because we want to be diplomats. So we need to be familiar about the format of the exam. Of course, we're going to do that in the exam, and we'll talk a little bit about it today as well. And then you have a broad knowledge, it says, base of history, diplomacy, and international relations. We need to build up that knowledge. So it's not just English. A candidate has to build up those other areas. So if you see the Portuguese teacher will probably say the same thing. We need to understand the subject of diplomacy as a whole to be able to express ourselves in English. So it's not just about learning English. You can do that at the escolinhas, okay? Go there and learn English, and they will take many years. We have to focus on a specific type of English and pushing you up to a high level. And of course, that's what I do, okay? That's why I've got these certificates here. That's why I teach at the government, and that's why I'm a specialist, okay? Because that's what we do. So, yes, you will find it difficult. We need the challenge, okay? Challenge is necessary to bring you up. Okay, and Kay Dwight said, is it possible to also familiarize yourself with exam questions other than those of the CACD from the same examiner? Well, the CACD exam is much more difficult than any other exam. I think even in Portuguese. I remember my wife doing the Portuguese and the English as well, and her level of English is fantastic, and Portuguese. And she saw that level is very, very high. So I think it's probably one of the highest levels of Portuguese and English, well, certainly English, as of Portuguese in all of the concourses, okay? So you can look at these exams and also go to the Rio Branco site, all right, where they have the guides. There are guides on the Rio Branco site of past papers where they print the answers by some of the students, okay? And you'll see that. And eventually, that'll be incorporated in the course as well. But of course, it means achieving dedication, okay, an effort, and a targeted study plan, which we've got. You'll find on the site the plan of what we're going to do, the amenta, I think you call it in Portuguese. All right, so that is clearly how you're going to follow what we do, okay? And gradually, with time, you're going to improve. You have to improve, okay? Even the most advanced English speaker has to improve for this exam, all right? But do you have to have the best English in the world? No, but you need to improve to be able to focus on how to pass this exam. And that's the difference, okay? So we need to always use high-level text, okay? The CACD exam, for example, has got high-level text. So the old ones from IAGES, the old one from CESP, and of course this year CEBRASP, we can use them. But they're a bit scary, okay? If you're starting, right? We have to build and step our way up to get there, all right? So for example, with the reading text, so in the first part, the TPS, if you know it's the first part, I put this in Portuguese. I thought it would be nicer, okay? So we have to understand complex text and see the arguments and the implicit understanding. So we have to analyze text and what they're saying, okay? Deal with the connotation and the connotation and the attitude of the author, okay? And show those, we'll identify and analyze the phrases that they use, because sometimes those phrases are part of the question, okay? So we need to get accustomed to get used to these types of texts, okay? So get familiar with the exam, and then after a period of time, then you do the exam. For example, what have I been doing? I've been getting those difficult texts, and I've been doing questions that are easy, questions that are intermediate, and questions that are advanced, okay? So then we are developing step by step. You do the easy questions, then you do the next class, the intermediate questions, and then we do the advanced ones. Of course, the advanced ones you might have difficulty with, okay? Okay, Bianca, so sharpen your writing, okay, will be done, but sharpening your writing, okay, you need to have, Bianca, the vocabulary to express academically the arguments for the exam and that language, okay? So it's knowing how to have the specific vocabulary that you need, the high-level expressions and verbs you need, okay? So that's how you sharpen your writing. You sharpen your writing in a way by writing, all right? You need someone to correct you. If you're already an advanced speaker and you need to write, because normally people don't write, okay? We speak English, some of us, very well, but even I don't write very often. And if I need to write, I can just do quick phrases, and that's all I do for my WhatsApp, for example, all right? And don't write long texts as I did when I was at school, all right? Okay, so Linneas, I'm going to suggest some readings as well, okay? So here we are, all right? So the TPA exam, you need certain abilities, okay? Certain habits that are advanced. So how do we do that? By reading advanced texts. Are they difficult at first? Yes. Are they challenging at first? Yes. But we can't protect you, all right? Not forever, because you're going to face that big bad examiner and those texts, all right? So we need to build it up. So as I'm saying, the text will have questions that are in different levels. I can do that now. I can with the help of AI, I can program it to produce different types of questions. And that's what we're going to do a lot on the text and on the in each module. And that helps me improve you a lot. I'm so excited to be able to do these new types of exercises with you, okay? Because it would take me, weeks and weeks to do what I could do now, having taken a week to program ChatGPT to produce these advanced texts, okay, but with questions that focus on basic grammar and then and vocabulary, intermediate and advanced grammar, and then also advanced grammar and vocabulary, okay? So because these are quite dense, these texts, okay? So okay, I'll talk about that, okay? Now, talking about reading, let's move on first. The types of texts, Bianca, here. Classic literature helps. Look, I've got a Kafka here. Takes me long. Ulysses by James Joyce. Now, that's extremely advanced. Not even in a language that I understand. Now, they take time, all right? So, yes, if you've got leisure time, look, I've got this one. Niche, I love this little book. Okay, I go to England and come back with these books and use these texts for us to prepare, okay? So, for example, in our course, we'll have short stories. Clarice Lispector, okay, would be a short story I would use. What else? James Thurber has short stories. Those literature, because you're studying, a lot. You're going to have to go. You're not going to be able to wash or have a shower. You've got to forget those friends because we need to push you up. Depends how the effort you make. Depends how quick we have. Okay. No problem, Bianca. Okay. So classic literature, yes, of course. But what time have we got? These are the ones that help us on the subjects you want, on history, on diplomacy, okay? These are the texts we can use by structuring the way we read, the way we analyze this vocabulary. As I said, the grammar will not be too difficult for reading. Of course, on the day of the TPS, there will be extremely difficult grammar, okay? But it's only 1 or 2 questions, all right? 50% will be mainly vocabulary questions, all right? So that will be the area where we must focus on lots of vocabulary. Okay, so these 5 different areas, you can find them all on the internet, okay? The Economist, you have to pay, but if you don't pay, you can still get 3 articles a month. So focus on this, not on necessarily politics, focus on the science, focus on the language areas, okay? Because they're the ones who come up on the exam. Foreign affairs, okay? And project syndicate. A lot of diplomats read project syndicate, okay? Of course, BBC history, nothing about Brazilian history there, okay? But there will be history that's good, but you've got great teachers here for history. You've got great teachers for diplomacy, okay? But reading in English, we're focusing on language rather than learning history. And of course, international diplomacy, the Council of Foreign Relations, United Nations as well even. There are many different ones we can look at, okay? But how do we read them? That's what we're going to learn. Now, for part 2, so Bianca, when we're talking about, is it Bianca? Yeah, I think you're talking about writing. You have to write and write and write. If you're starting and you've got a good level of English, yes, you have to start writing straight away. All right, start learning that habit of writing. On the day of the test, it's 4 hours of pressure. And people make lots of mistakes because of pressure. So on the course, we're going to learn about that pressure, how to deal with that. So we learn our mistakes because we're going to make mistakes when we're under pressure. Okay, if you did ever the IELTS exam, it's an exam where you have to write within 1 hour 2 questions, and the 1 hour gives you a lot of pressure, and that pressure is used to test your level because it's a level test. Okay, so you make mistakes, and then it can see, it's a way of seeing what your level is because the pressure forces you to make mistakes. Then they can judge your level better. Okay, so of course we have to develop the structures, our arguments, how to argue. Okay, so we have to analyze that because now we have Sebraspi, they require a better analysis than the past years, okay? The texts are bigger. So we have to look at logical and coherent analysis, okay? But be critical as well. The examiner wants to see that you're intelligent. It's not just preparing a nice text. Analyzing and thinking and planning carefully. And of course, our vocabulary must be very formal and precise. So that's a high level vocabulary. If you've got great Portuguese, you're going to have probably a great level of English as well, okay? Because you're able to choose those words at high level Portuguese. When we translate them, we're choosing a high level of English too, because there's so many similarities. We mustn't think English is nothing. We have no English. We have a lot because there's a lot of similar information, especially when it's Latin-based. Academic language is Latin-based. So it's very similar to high-level Portuguese, okay? So don't be thinking, I've got to learn everything. For example, phrasal verbs. No, we're not going to be studying phrasal verbs, all right? We're not going to be studying comparisons. We don't need to usually to compare anything, all right? But we will study the simple tenses like simple present, present perfect, and the simple past, because that's all that we need, all right? The advanced ones, okay, inversions and cleft sentences, they can be learned very specifically for the exam, okay? But generally, we don't need to go too much depth into grammar because we waste our time, all right? We waste our time doing grammar, right? Because there's too many similarities and we need vocabulary. That's the focus. So if you're going to a grammar course for CACD, a lot of it will be enrolação. Why am I doing this? Okay, when I will never need it to pass the exam. When you know what the exam, we know what it is, then we can make these studying easier. All right. Okay, fine. So writing. So how do we do that? Well, we need to get from the intermediate level. Okay, this independent speaker. Most people are these independent speakers. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to show you in a moment. Okay, daily study. All right. I'm going to show you one now. I mentioned it before. Okay. So because what we do when we're in a intermediate, when we're lower level, we learn lots of single words and grammar. So we do these grammar exercises. We learn grammar, okay, and lots of single words. So we're writing down these single words, finding out there's a lot of new words when you're a lower level to learn. That's quite natural. But what happens is everyone says, oh, I'm an intermediate level. Because when we study this way, we hit a level and it's very difficult to get to more advanced levels. How do, let's say, diplomats move up to those high level? They learn either naturally or through the method we're going to do to learn about lexical phrases, collocations, okay? One of my books here, okay. Oh yeah, look, a research on collocations. There we are. Lots of research. And so we need to push you up to that level. We need to break through that intermediate plateau and take you up to the high level. And that's what we do when we are studying for the CACD. It's easier in many ways because we study how language combines, all right? How verbs and nouns combine. So these are collocations. Adjective nouns combine, even adverbs and adjectives. And let's go down here, words with prepositions. At a higher level, prepositions have little meaning, okay? We just have to know which word it combines with. And within our limit of academic language, we can do that. So we don't have many problems with prepositions once we study them, okay? It's how that focused study that's going to help you, okay? We don't need to know everything. We need to have a focused, let's say, corpus of language which we're going to build up together. So how words are connected, we're going to look. And this is the grammar, in a way, of vocabulary, which is lexis. Because the majority of vocabulary is connected in these forms. So that's the secret, okay? That's the jika. How do we do that as daily study? Good word, good daily study, because you have daily study, do that, okay. This is something I wrote about many years ago for the BBC and the British Council, and it's for teachers actually, teaching English. It's there's about lexical notebooks. And I'm going to show you how to structure this notebook, how to do this, okay? So it's cadernos lexicais, okay? Collocations, phrases. Within the themes, we're going to study diplomacy, conflict, for example, trade, the foreign policy, like to compare. I think the first weeks we're comparing the Bolsonaro government with the Lula government foreign policy. Okay, so we understand that a bit more. And how do we extract that vocabulary? I'm going to show you, and you're going to start making your little notebook. Oh, here's another. Here's a notebook we're going to make. Okay, here's a notebook I stole from the British Council. I did work for the British Council a long time ago on some contracts, but for example, making a simple notebook, it is so simple. Look, we make Brazilian foreign policy, and then we put our verbs and nouns. We're going to make a list of them, and it's simple. Why is it so you think it's so basic and so simple? Because we can do everything online, and it can do it all for us, but we can't get it into your brain, okay? Because cognitively, you're not going to be learning very deeply unless you start to analyze the vocabulary that are in these texts. and a focused analysis. And that's very important in the structure of our course, okay? Extremely important. That's why we can put you up, let's go back, up to pass through the intermediate plateau to the higher level, okay? It's constant look at these combinations and noting them down in your book, okay? So you've got your own information together, and you can, and what we do, we learn to behave differently in learning this vocabulary, and that's that behavior we need to push up through that level. So yes, everyone can be a lower level. That's okay, no problem at all, because we're going to move up higher, because I'm going to show you how to study and structure your learning of these phrases, of these combinations, all right? That's what moves us up quite quick, all right? Now, courses of English don't do this, of course, because they're teaching you English in every way, every bit of grammar, every language, but everything, because it's too general. And our course is specific. So that's what's the easiest thing for me to do. I've got a specific amount of language that I need you to know. I'm going to get you to write it down, and you've got it. Okay, there are other strategies we're going to learn, because 50% of your learning comes from class and 50% comes from learning strategies. And this is the learning strategy of mastering advanced grammar and vocabulary. When words combine, there's grammar included in it as well, all right? And we can see the common and repetitive vocabulary many times. In that repetitive vocabulary, you're going to write it down as well. So that's structured within our course. It's a real good course. I have to admit myself, I enjoy doing it, okay? But it's, and of course, we can even do that from these texts as well, all right? I'm going to use other ones that I've produced specifically with ChatGPT. I've taught it the type of vocabulary we need to learn, we need to do, to produce what I'm going to call notes in each class. I'm going to give you an exercise to do, to look at this vocabulary, to get you to have the behavior of writing down information in your notebook, okay? And that behavior will change you, all right? So you force you to move from a lower level to a higher level. This is what we have to do, all right? Because if you're a beginner, you need to focus. So whether you study with me for, 10 years or 1 year, you're going to be more autonomous in your study. So after the course, you'll be moving away, analyzing those texts, and you're going to go, this is good. This is what I see. You'll be reading the guides that say at Rio Branco, wow, he used that vocabulary. I know that. I've used that too, right? Because we're going to see very similar styles of writing when it comes to the phase 2. Okay, and the phase 1, we must be familiar with the questions, bringing up your grammar, bringing up your vocabulary, piece by piece, step by step to get there. And we have 3 modules, 8 weeks each, so 24 weeks for you to study, okay? Done it before, okay? Don't worry, if you are a low level, take your time. You will have some difficulty. It's natural. If you were to do a normal English course, you would have difficulty, of course. But having a teacher who is, I am humble to say, an expert in teaching, okay, all right, is there to help you. There are other ways you can study, of course. But on our course, you have the understanding how you've got to change to improve your language, okay? With difficulty, of course, we need to go past those barriers, pass through those challenges, but that's what I'm there for, all right? And that's what I've done for many years. Now, of course, if you were never to study with me, okay, you would need a good private English teacher anyway, all right? Okay, but private English teachers are not focused on the CACD. they don't know. They would probably like to do it, but there are very few teachers teaching CACD, okay, because of the level of difficulty that they find dealing with these texts, okay? So you need someone who is an expert, okay? Now, I always suggest now in my first week, you get into a study group. Now, my concern as I have children, probably, well, they're not children, adult children, your age. How do they study well? All right, so it's always good in the first weeks when we're in class. No, Nielsen, you can't study dictionary during the exam. So we get into groups, you get to a study group. What happens in study group? Now, you find that people who are married tend to pass together, all right, because they're studying together. And what happens with a study group, you've got 4 or 5 people together, all right? So you start off and you go on to clipping and say, does anyone want to start a study group? And then each week you go through what we've done in class, what the different teachers have done in class. And so, well, I've studied this or not this. And as you go, you end up teaching each other. Now, what happens? You're helping each other to improve. Remember, if one person of your group passes, you know you're on the right track. So helping each other, what happens is one person passes, then a second person passes the next year, and then the third person, because you're then growing together and you learn together and you're teaching each other as well. All right. And eventually you find out you all go to Rio Branco, okay, and studying well. It's a marathon. It's a very good strategy because I don't know where you are. You're somewhere. You could be in Porto Alegre, you could be in Santarém, you could be in Tocantins, you could be in I don't know, Victoria, Rio, Sao Paulo, here in Brasilia. You're probably at home on your desk, okay, in your bedroom or in your office, learning by yourself. It's a lonely, lonely thing, especially with English as well. You've got expert teachers to help you, but also you need other people with to say, well, I'm focusing on this. And teaching each other is a great way of learning as well. All right, now that's nothing to do with English. It's a way how I think when you start to learn to get competitive, another way of moving up quickly okay, is having those, because usually you find, I remember there were 5 of them. I remember I went online talking to a group and 3 of them passed in each different years, okay, because one, you've got the motivation, someone's passed, wow, and I thought I was better than him or her, all right, so next year is my year. And that person says, yes, this is what I did differently. This is what I learned. So that collaboration is very important. As I said, it's lonely studying together. It's lonely studying by yourself. So when we start, first thing I'll suggest is for the good of your studies is not just, I'm not thinking of English, we're thinking about how you're going to get improve everything, okay? Because being critical and discussing and arguing is very important for the second phase of this exam. So having similar-minded people to discuss is very important. All right, you need that. You need to talk about these different theories. You need to understand history well, the underlying problems that a combination of factors caused maybe a war, like the First World War. We need to understand them. Of course, we do it in English, but quite superficially, all right? But so you've got to do it deeper, because when it comes to writing, you have to write to a higher level with a better analysis of the question than your competitors. And to analyze that, you talk to your peers, and then you learn from each other as well, okay? And then, of course, you need to know a teacher who prepares students? Well, that's me, of course, how to prepare people. Okay, so yeah, there are ways to do it. Okay, we structured the course very carefully. All right, now some people do the course 2 times, and I always think that is a good thing. All right, because their level is maybe basic, and they do all of the course, and they do it again. They see it all again. Well, it always changes, really. All right, and then they take longer, because you've got 2 years of pushing you up to a high level. You can do it in 1, of course you can, no problem at all. All right, but usually it takes more time, of course, to pass, because there's so much you've got. I'm sorry, I pressed the wrong button. I was trying to get out of my presentation. Okay, but yeah, that's it. Okay, literature, yes, you can read literature. You can create literature. There's no problem if you've got time to do that. Okay, James Joyce, as I said, but we've got to think of even books that are Portuguese and English are good. Translations are usually very good. Invest in a grammar book is always good, okay, but we'll be doing grammar in class, but not as, you need more time in certain areas, and I will tell you that, okay. And lots of reading of foreign affairs, reading of the Project Syndicate, reading of The Economist, and those will be guiding you through, because there's so much, all right, there's so much for you to do, okay. You know, but if you are a real basic student and you don't speak English, it's going to take you 5 or 6 years. That's, remember that. If you've got advanced level, it's still going to take you time, okay? It's still going to take, you can't just walk into the exam with advanced level and pass. We have to know exactly how to write like the examiner wants, how to be a diplomat, okay? You know, what is wanted to, what Itamachi wants from its diplomats. So we're always listening to the types of policies, the types of ideas that are coming out of the government. And of course, what do? I produce information based on them as well. Because, for example, the last year, they've been talking about emigration, Brazilian emigration, not immigration, emigration. So that's a question that could come up next year. All right, how the brain drain is affecting Brazil and how the Itamaraty can deal with that. Okay, so there are certain questions. Of course, environment is a problem. It's focused trade in Brazil. It's agribusiness is also, and it has an effect on the world as well. So those questions are also ones we've got to analyze in English too, right? And we'll do that by focusing how we can study the vocabulary. Okay, fine. If I don't have any, people ask me questions like, is it English from America or English from Britain? Okay. Professor, are the examiners strict on grammar mistakes? Yes. You want, in an exam, that we want a minimum of 5 mistakes. That's what the top people do, okay? 5 mistakes. I have had some with no mistakes. And IAGs went back and tried to correct them again to find some. All right. And then they invented some, and then in the courses we proved that there wasn't any. All right. So we have to learn how to write in certain limited ways so you don't make mistakes. So when you're writing, you see your mistakes. And of course, what you're going to do, you're going to make a list of your mistakes, because you're going to have a teacher saying, that's wrong. And then you've got to find out, why are you wrong? Okay. Sometimes what I do, I make people rewrite the same thing again and again and again until it's perfect. That's one strategy you can do. Okay. You write something, give it to as someone to check, okay? And they check it and you rewrite it. So it's all bonitinho and new, all right? Then what do? I do it again to see deeper problems or what you can improve. And that's called process writing, okay? So that brings you up to another level. That's a quicker way of writing. It takes time, it's challenge, okay? It requires a lot more in-depth understanding of grammar and the exam, but that's another way of doing it. So, so that is also a way. So yes, they're strict on grammar, they're strict on spelling, they're strict on punctuation. This is not, you have to be near perfect to pass this exam, right? So we have to get ourselves up that way, keep studying and get that. As I said, people with intermediate level, I know I got to Rio Branco and would get, let's say, 50 people in the first class, and some of them were saying, my English is not good enough. I need more English. And then we'd see them debate, and some of them still weren't very good. Most of them okay, because once you're in that environment, it also pushes you up higher because everyone starts to speak English. And you've got, of course, good teachers at Rio Branco as well. Excuse me, I have a drink. So English is important for the first phase of the exam and the second phase. The writing is very demanding. It requires a lot. So it depends on where you're starting from and how you get there and the effort it's going to take you. That's only you can judge, all right? Unless you sit down with me for half an hour and I have to analyze everything about you, okay? Everyone is different. Everyone requires different help, okay? And we try to do that on the course, okay? That's why at the end of each module, I've asked for us to open, to discuss, to ask questions, to have more dynamic class than just me. We recorded classes, which will be the majority of them, okay? Because I need to hear you, I need to see you, I need to find out what adjustments we need to make as well. Okay, well, so typical questions. English or American? Well, as long as you're consistent with one type of spelling or one type of language, that's okay. But a more English style is better because it's more elegant in diplomacy. Okay, they expect a high level of academic language, which tends to be a more British, let's say, form. Okay, more formal. Right? We think of Americans sometimes as being informal. It's not, but the different tenses sometimes can make a difference the way it's used. All right, so formal language is what we want, not necessarily English or British, but the British seems to be the one. And I think that's it. What other questions do people have? Yeah, we have to practice reading the types of text, practice answering the types of questions, practice writing the type of compositions that are necessary, and that's it. Practice, and looking at all of that vocabulary you need, okay? And I will help you to do that, of course, all right? You probably won't find many other teachers who do what I do because how demanding the exam is, okay? So doesn't mean it's impossible. Of course not. It means effort and dedication, right? Hundreds of my students have passed, okay? So yeah, hundreds of diplomats I've taught, hundreds at Rio Branco. So we know what it takes before, during Rio Branco, and of course, when you become a diplomat, what English you need. English is part of your life when you're a diplomat, okay? So even this preparation to become more autonomous in the first module especially will benefit you to change your behavior for the rest of your life as well. Wow, I'm giving you a life lesson there. Chill Sean is saying how to improve your life. But it can be done because English will open doors for you anyway. And the great thing about learning this for this exam, you have to focus on a great level of language. So you will improve. So whatever happens in your life, you're going to have great English after you finish a course focused on CACD. Okay? Even you'll be great, level of economics, level of, from a personal point of view, for the rest of your life, you'll be more competitive in everything you're going to study. Okay? We have people, I have some private students who studied with me on in here at Clipping, and they enjoy the classes so much. They're older. They want a challenge. They want a high level of thought. Okay, and that's what's enjoyable, because we're learning so many new things in a new way. Okay, that's it. I think that's it. I will say goodbye to everyone. I hope that was interesting. How long have we been? Wow, over an hour. All of the best. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.